Hey guys, welcome back to another video here at All I See Is W, where we talk about stocks, Bitcoin, and finance. Now, if you're new to this channel, I would really appreciate you hitting the like, subscribing for more related content. Today, I wanted to just give you all an overall update with the Bitcoin mining sector, as well as the price of Bitcoin. Just throughout this entire week, we've been seeing a lot of volatility. Bitcoin reaching its all-time high, breaking through the $100,000 range back in December 4th. And yesterday, there was a lot of fear and uncertainty going on where the price of Bitcoin dropped down. And I think that's what caused a reduction in a lot of the price with the Bitcoin miners, including altcoins. However, today we saw a nice bounce back with the price of Bitcoin, and that's why we saw a sea of green, especially with the Bitcoin miners. In fact, today I wanted to just talk about Riot Platform, which I think the stock RLT is significantly undervalued. We'll talk more about my overall price targets. Is now a good time to buy Riot? Is it a good time to hold or sell? Or even perhaps dollar cost averaging down? Let's say if you bought at a higher cost average. But we'll talk more about the technicals as well as what's going on with the company updates, look at it through the lens of a fundamental perspective. Now, let's begin first. I'd like to just go through the overall share price. So, just on a zoomed in perspective here, just as we look back in 2022, price range here was about $23 with the price that it reached. Going back here 2023 of this year, we saw that it hovered at around the 18, close to $20 price range. That actually happened multiple times that we saw 2023 here and heading into like 2024, we saw that it bounced up to, like $18, like I think three times in the early year. And now we just continue to see a descending resistance. If you zoom in here, you see it reaching like 18 and then it bounced back up to 18 and then it went down and then it bounced back up to 18 in February. And then just now we see that descending resistance where you see the Ichimoku cloud just over the price range at that time. And when we see the gravity or the resistance cloud here above the current price, think of it as gravitational pull that will bring down the share price. But just now, when you look at like September here, we see that breakthrough hovering past the clouds, which is a good thing. We want to see the actual price above the cloud from a technical standpoint, just based on the Ichimoku clouds here. And now where we currently are, where the price range is at like 1177 at the end of the market today, current prices above the cloud. What does that mean? I think that now that we've broken past beyond the gravitational cloud here. I think that in the near term, we're gonna start reaching that prior resistance, start testing that $18 range in the near term. Whether that happens in December, that's quite possible. I think that the miners have been lagging behind so much, but I think especially with Riot, it's been just beat down so much. It's been heavily like sold in just market makers have been manipulating the price, and we have a lot of shorters as well. RSI is relatively low at this time, and I think come December this month, we can see that retest of like $15 to $18. And then as we scale out heading into the new year, I think this retest here, once we break through that 18-20 range, that's where we're going to see it retest its prior resistance that we saw back in 22. And I think the tier number three here is we can see this start coming hovering above like the $30 range. Just keeping in mind as we scale out here back in 2021 when we saw that bullish cycle from Bitcoin, around the same time frame. I mean, December here, right? So December. January is when it had that bull run. We're in that sort of that building up phase of December, January. So if it follows historical trends, we anticipate a bounce up here. And I think those early investors right now who are currently invested in Riot can benefit significantly with a potential huge run up. It can possibly break through this here and, with the price of Bitcoin. I think there's just a lot of forecasts going on right now that in the near term, it's going to break through the 150,000 range. I think it can easily break through 200,000 range, especially just with Bitcoin being a scarce commodity. It's limited. Law of supply and demand applies here. The whole world is trying to accumulate Bitcoin. MicroStrategy, Marathon Digital, and now you have Riot Platform as a number two Bitcoin mining HODL company trying to take that MSTR playbook. And I think that's really going to benefit them because the price of Bitcoin is going to go up. From a near-term perspective, yes, we see these ups and downs, but when you zoom out from left to right, it's just going to continue going up. And at one point, we'll see two commas on the Bitcoin price. But I think technical standpoints, we're looking good here. You know, if we follow that historical trend, we can see that bounce up here, whether it breaks through 30, $50 range. I mean, at one point it got up to like $80. So we can't underestimate that. We've seen what's happened in the altcoin sector. Miners have just been lagging behind so much. There's a lot of volatility, but where there's volatility, there's that potential bullish run that can come. Let's take a look at what analysts are saying. So, based on 12 Wall Street analysts, what their last 3 months forecast here is that they have a price target of a $24 high with Riot, with 50% upside here, with the low point of $11. We know current price here is at like $11 here. When you scale back out, back in September, there were 10 analysts suggesting a buy. Now it's increased to 12. Zero sells, zero hold. Eight buy back in June. So eight buy back in March, but there's no sell forecasting here. So what does that mean? There's just a lot of bullish price targets. In fact, Roth came out, JP Morgan Chase just announced their price target of Riot Platforms, increasing their price targets. So what does that mean? Riot is significantly undervalued when you look at price targets compared to all the different miners. And I think that because Riot has been beat down so much, what goes down will eventually go back up. So, this overall high price here, average range, it's fairly consistent with the range that I have set here, tier number one here, before we start breaking out to tier two and tier three from a technical standpoint. Let's take a look at some recent information. So, we learned that Riot is now going to acquire Bitcoin through MSTR's playbook. So they got the convertible note offering. In fact, they got an offering of 525 million, which is going to be approved by end of day today, which is good news because now Mara acquiring Bitcoin, Riot is, following that same approach, especially when you're one of those high-end companies with the big HODL number. You should be doing what the big boys are doing. And I like how Riot just applied this approach here. So with that 525 million, with zero to minimal interest due up through 2030, this gives the hedge for Riot to acquire Bitcoin at the current value price. And I'll go through just some details on what Riot actually just recently did with acquiring Bitcoin. So we know that their HODL approach here, they have about 11,425 Bitcoin, making it the third largest publicly traded corporate Bitcoin holder. But I think with this amount of money here, not only are they mining at a fixed cost, they're able to hedge and buy Bitcoin with not even their own money, but borrowed money. And once Bitcoin breaks through that trajectory, that's just going to increase their profitability. But what's good here is that today we saw the price hover up, right? We saw that most Bitcoin miners went up, but with Riot, it actually went up far more than all the other Bitcoin mining companies. However, yesterday we did see a sea of red, and we saw Riot's share price drop 14% with that announcement of 500 million through the convertible notes. But that was expected because of a sea of red, and especially with the price of Bitcoin going down. But I think that with this playbook on hand, now they have that option to buy Bitcoin. I think that's really just going to allow them to stamp their grounds, continue to be in the race as a number two Bitcoin miner, and create that disparity between all the other miners that are behind Riot when you think about, like the other high-end companies like Iron, CleanSpark, from a HODL perspective. As for Mara is still the leading number one, and that's explained with their current share price. But I think from an undervalued perspective, because Riot's share price has been beat down so much, this really looks attractive to investors, those who are trying to buy low and sell high. At the end of November, with Riot at like 11,425 Bitcoin in its treasury, I think that we can start hearing information very soon, maybe this week or next week, that they have approximately, whether it's going to be more than 15,000 Bitcoin or even more on their balance sheet, especially with this approval of the convertible note. And yes, while we do see an increase in Bitcoin's price, which is a good thing, the good news I wanted to share with you is that just looking at just recent information, I mean, this happened not too long ago, like hours ago. Riot has been buying Bitcoin. So they spent $70 million just within the last 24 hours acquiring Bitcoin. So you see here, one Bitcoin that was acquired at $98,000 here. 0.001 Bitcoin acquired at $96. So there you can see that the price of Bitcoin that they're paying is at around the 96, 97, $98,000 with this, money that they got approved for. So what does that mean? Riot is applying the Mara playbook, the MSTR playbook, but the benefit with Riot and any other miner is that they were able to mine at a fixed cost. And with Riot's strategy, they have a really good strategy when it comes to low cost mining efficiency. Their balance sheet, they have very little debt, and just with their consistent mining production month over month, we've seen that they're like at around the 500 range now. With this HODL approach, they're going to create that disparity, continue to be number two Bitcoin miner. But with Corsicana, I think that that's really going to ramp up their overall throughput when it comes to Bitcoin mining. So we see here just the gradual increase. But I think here this is old information, but uh, we may hear like in a few days or a week that it bumps up to like 15 plus thousand Bitcoin. So what's unique about Corsicana is that they have sites, in Texas. They acquired another site in Kentucky. They're rolling that out. But overall, with just so much work going on at the Corsicana facility, they're hoping to have that full deployment to be in place sometime next year, and then have a hash rate of like 20.2 current state. With their recent announcement in Q3, they're at like a 12 hash rate. So they haven't really tapped in fully at the Corsicana mining facility, not even talking about all of the available gigawatts that they have in place, so they haven't really leveraged that power yet. On top of that, just having the micro BT that they ordered for the Corsicana facility. So I think overall, their mining capabilities are just going to continue improving, not only at Corsicana, but at the Rockdale facility, including the Kentucky area that they recently acquired. So I think overall, the numbers for the Bitcoin HODL on their reserve is just going to increase. And that's really just going to position Riot to be one of the leading Bitcoin miner companies. And what does that mean from a share price perspective? I think that Riot has that potential to 3 to 10x now. I mean, we've seen Riot run up from like $5 to $81. So where it currently stands right now, I wouldn't be surprised to see Riot, especially if it follows the recent historical bullish run during the last Bitcoin run about 4 years ago. If is the miner industry going to follow that same trajectory? If so, then we're going to see potential bullish gains for Riot Platforms. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Please leave your comments, questions, and please make sure to subscribe for another video content coming soon. Thank you.